Welcome to the Home Business Podcast with Richard Captain Henderson, publisher of Home Business Magazine, and Sherilyn Colleen, managing editor. This how-to show helps you successfully operate your home-based business.
Greetings and welcome to the Home Business Podcast. I'm Richard Captain Henderson, your skipper at Home Business TV.
And I'm Lynn, your co-host.
Let's secure, foresee, and get underway. A key issue for all home business owners is how to create compelling advertising and marketing copy.
So are you ready to discover what to say and how to say it to magnetically attract your dream clients? Then you need Marisa Corcoran in your corner.
In addition to writing the words that get landing pages, converting at over 60% or higher, and crafting personality-filled emails, Harvard graduate Marisa helps coaches and creatives alike craft their uncopyable messages.
When not typing on her laptop, you can find Marisa analyzing a Real Housewives episode like it's government policy and consuming inappropriate amounts of nutrageous bars.
So greetings, Marisa Corcoran. Welcome to the Home Business Podcast. Say hello to our listeners.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for that epic intro.
Yes, thank you for coming on our show today.
Thanks for connecting in from a lovely Atlanta today.
Yep, Atlanta. It's like fake fall here. It's like 80 degrees one day, then it's like 50. It's like, that's the season we're in, but yeah.
We got like two like entrepreneurial hubs, it seems like, in the South. One is Charlotte and the other is Atlanta. So there's a lot of startup and entrepreneur activity going on in Atlanta.
Yeah, it's big. I'm a New Yorker, so I lived in New York City for almost 10 years. And when I moved here, I was shocked at how many entrepreneurs. I had no idea. And it's true. They love it here. We love it here.
So you love it, Atlanta, more than New York?
I do. We were ready for a change. We were ready for my husband and I were like bona fide adults at 35 now. We were ready for a washer and dryer inside of our house.
Congratulations.
We were ready for like a dish. Thank you very much. We were ready for a dishwasher. We were ready for like a driveway that was like our own. We were just like ready for those things.
A little more space, more simple living. Well, Marisa, You have a strange road into copywriting. Can you talk about the journey a bit?
Yeah, totally. So you mentioned in the introduction, so I went to Harvard, but I went to, I call it kind of like fake Harvard, but it is real Harvard. I went for acting. So I got my MFA in acting from Harvard University. And when I moved back to New York City afterwards, one of the biggest things that I needed was kind of a side gig where I wasn't like, stressing myself out, waitressing or nannying. I needed to have that time with my agent and stuff to go on auditions. So a friend of mine suggested, hey, you should write for like online businesses. And I was like, what is this? And so the first job that I got writing for someone, I realized that all of the things that make you an incredible actor on stage actually make you like a great leading lady for your business. So I just started kind of applying all those principles, the idea of like being vulnerable, telling real stories, having a clear call to action. In acting, we call it like having an intention with your scene partner. Like, what do you want to get out of the scene partner? So I would approach emails that way. What do we want to get out of the reader who's reading this? Do we want them to click over? And so I started applying all those things, and my early clients were getting really great results. And I was like, I'm on to something.
Kind of took some improv to copy.
Yes, I
improv
did.
From acting into copy and making it work.
Yeah,
that's a good way of looking at it. Yeah. You're trying to get the same response from somebody as if you're like standing right in front of them, like reading a monologue, reading a script.
Yeah, exactly. Like what do you want to get from the person that's reading this? How do you want them to feel? What stories can you tell? Where can you have a little bit of that improv, that fun? And so I started to get apply this kind of like acting improv to copy into business. And one day I was like, you know what? I kind of like doing this better than the grind of auditioning. So I was like, see ya, Marisa actor, and hello, Marisa copywriter.
Hey, cool. That's a good interesting journey in. Well, you do put a huge focus on the actual word copy. Why is copy so important for a business?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I always think that copy is like one of the 3 business basic needs. So number one is you have to find a way to, attract the people that you want to attract, like your dream, who those dream clients are. That's like your lead generation. Like, how are you calling them to you? And then how are you enrolling them or selling to them? That's number 2, in a way that you don't feel like a used car salesman, like in a way that feels real. And then how do you actually even get people to find you and want to buy from you? Well, that's the 3rd business basic need, which is copy, which is your message. If they don't know who you are, what you do, what makes you so specific, how exactly you can help them, then lead gen, then the other 2 business basic needs kind of suffer. So messaging and copy, it to me is like, that's where you start. You got to be clear on your message and your copy.
Then I guess you got to figure out sometimes with like a company branding that in, that copy, maybe that links to a graphics where you link the copy to a graphics when you get down to the actual branding level for a company.
Yeah, there's all different ways where it appears. There's always room for a little bit more of like personality or something that feels a little bit more specific or comes in at an unexpected way that can really make a difference for that right ideal client that sees it. So there's always room to there's all the different levels that it really plays into.
An important thing I see with what you're talking about is that, you get lost in the internet and cyberspace and Facebook and Instagram and all this, but you forget, the bedrock, the anchor of all those mediums is still copy. People are reading words, but sometimes that gets lost in all the visuals. But it's still as important as it was, 1,000 years ago. What are you actually saying?
Yeah, you put it perfectly. Even if you see an image on Instagram, even like the algorithm on there is clocking if people are staying there for like longer than 3 seconds. So that means you have to have a caption that is compelling enough for them to stick around and look at it. And copies every step of the way. The emails that you send, what does your checkout page look like? It's part of everything. So yeah.
Well, touching on that, can you share some advice on creating magnetic copy that gets results?
Yeah. So one of my biggest things that I always talk about, going back to the actor, Marisa, is stories are such a huge part of it. So where can you always tell a story that feels relatable? And this is where sometimes people get overwhelmed. They're like, well, what stories do I tell? So in the acting world, we call them like the slice of life moments, which is really like the everyday. That's what people want to see. Let's say it's on Instagram or in an email. They want to see those kind of slice of life moments, that a conversation you struck up at Target with somebody led you to think of something that you're now sharing with your readers. And so I tell my students and my clients, like, you have to start keeping a running list of this. You have to see yourself as a creative being over being a marketer, so that you're open to it. So that if you are out to dinner and someone brings up a topic, you can kind of register and go, hey, I could use that for an email, or I could use that for a social post. And I have them like create a list. So you keep a running list for yourself.
What do you think about as far as like trying to keep things as brief as possible? That I keep hearing, copy and email and so much noise out there that you got to be as brief as possible and do what we used to call in the military, BLUF, bottom line up front, lead with, what's important. I mean, what are some of your thoughts on that with brevity and not having just not having a lot of bandwidth and attention span with the person you're trying to reach?
Yeah. So number one, I get that. And then number two, I go, yeah, if we do have short attention spans, why not be as bold with the story as we can and really hook people from the beginning? So if you're going to tell a story, really make sure that you drop people right into the center of the moment. You don't need all of the buildup. If you're talking about a conversation with somebody that you had in Target, you can start right with, maybe the first line you said to the person. So that hooks the person in and they're more likely to keep reading. But also there's many things that, like studies and things that they've done that prove that longer form copy still outperforms short copy. So instead of being caught up in the length, I want people to get caught up in, is what I'm saying really connecting? Is it leading the person to keep reading the next? And even if they scroll, are they still getting the gist of what I'm trying to say?
Now, see, that's a key point. You want to write copy that's longer, but it's got to immediately link people in so they continue on with it. And then if you can get them to go through the entire message, you're going to get much more impact than something that's shorter and loses loses their attention.
Yep.
Let's move a little bit on to email. All of our inboxes are filled with so much email junk. What are your 3 best tips for emails that actually get opened and responded to?
Yeah, so it's similar to what we were just talking about. So stories win. Email is your, it's like your VIPs, like your best people. That's a way to stand out in a crowded box. That's like, here's a coupon, here's this. It's an awesome way to connect with stories. So stories is number one. Where can you tell a specific story? So for example, I wanted to segment my list. Because I have two types of people. Maybe they want to have me do copy for them, or people that want to be my students. So I wanted to segment them so they only get the emails they need. I'm like, I don't want to just send some boring email that's like, click here. So I told this story about how every Saturday, I'm actually looking at it on my desk, I go through our mail And we always get mail for this woman that doesn't live here in our house anymore. Her name is Natalie Cruz. And I literally spent every Saturday going through a pile of Natalie Cruz mail. So that's how I started the email. Do you know Natalie Cruz? I don't know her either, but I get mail for her every Saturday. And I basically said, I don't want my emails to you to ever feel like one big pile of Natalie Cruz. So click below and tell me which box you fall into. So I told a story that was more likely to get them to kind of take action. And then that leads to the second tip, which is to have a very clear call to action. What do you want them to do? Click over to the blog, hit reply, grab that coupon, go to listen to the podcast, whatever it is, don't leave it up to chance, make that call to action.
I mean, I think that's where you really need to be brief and focused, because I've seen so many calls to action come and I'm like, okay, what do they want me to do?
Yes.
There's like 3 different directions in the email and I finally just, hit delete.
Yeah, you're so right. It goes, but we were saying about acting before, like when you're on stage, you can only have one intention in the scene. You're not allowed to have more than one. So it's the same in an email. What's that one call to action you want them to do? And say, click here to check out the pot. Like, don't leave it up to chance and don't muddy it with other places they could go to.
So you spoke a lot about storytelling. Do you have any final or further tips on how to find stories that'll get results?
Yeah, so finding stories, again, is like, it's just really being open to it. And another way that I like to do it is like what's kind of called like newsjacking, like what's going on in the world. Like, is there a movie you saw that people are seeing that you could connect to? I did a whole Facebook Live to my community about The Joker, the movie that, and this idea that, yeah, you can have more than one origin story, meaning there's more than one way to like write an about page. So I connected that back. So that's a really great way too, is what are TV shows, like what are popular things that people are liking that you can connect back to?
I like that term you said, newsjack.
Yeah.
There's so much stuff out there that's tip of the tongue and you got to hook into that.
Yeah. Yeah. I always say like, take back Twitter for good, like go through and see what's trending. What are things that you can kind of talk on and have fun with it. Come at it with a little bit more fun.
Well, shifting gears here a little bit now, female entrepreneurship is critical in business. Can you talk with us a little bit about your larger vision for women in business?
Yeah, my big thing for women in business that I'm doing is I'm really trying to help, especially millennial women, pay off their student loans by creating wealth in their business.
I hear so much about that.
Yeah, that's like my big platform. Without relying on your partner or a man, without relying on the federal government to make a decision if they're going to pay it off, and not being stuck in their repayment, the IBR, the repayment plans that are like, this prison that they put you in. I want to say to women that you can create a business that you resonate with and you can pay off that student loan and create wealth in your business. And so I'm really walking the talk for myself and paying off my Harvard student loan in real time and showing women that you can do the same and you don't have to wait around for someone to figure it out or be stuck in that like debt repayment prison.
Yeah, I've heard about this so much. We talked to another guest that was discussing about how the levels of debt were actually holding back millennials from going into business. Yeah. Whereas actually when they survey millennials, they're a very entrepreneurial focused group. I mean, higher than baby boomers, and they're oriented to working as entrepreneurs. But the levels of student debt are actually holding them into a day job where they can't jump into the pool.
Yeah, that's huge. And you're so right about the entrepreneurial spirit. Like so many millennials have these ideas, and because they don't have somebody that's showing them like, here's step one, here's what you do. And that's what I really try to work with my students on, so they feel that they can take that leap or they have that bridge for themselves, because we have that spirit like as millennials, where my mother-in-law, like I love her, but she's like, you take money from people on the internet? Like, oh my God, I would never. Like, what do you mean? How do they pay you? Like, she doesn't know this world, they don't get it. So yeah, that's my big vision.
Well, Marisa Corcoran, this has been a wonderful discussion on creating magnetic copy. Do you have any further advice you'd like to share?
No, thank you guys for having me. I say the biggest thing I always tell people is have fun with it. Like, have a little bit more fun. Where can you tell those stories? And where can you always have one clear call to action that will serve you so well if you can just do that?
Well, you got to have fun if you're going to create compelling copy. Well, Marisa Corcoran, thanks for being such a great guest on the Home Business Podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. To learn more about Marisa Corcoran and our 6-month mastermind, Copy Confidence Society, visit marisacorcoran.com or our podcast website for more information on guests.
Thanks for joining us in this episode of the Home Business Podcast. Share your feedback with us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and at our website, homebusinessmag.com.
Visit the website for information on advertising, subscribe to our newsletter. Please visit our sponsors. For more information, visit homebusinessmag.com or the expo at homebusinessexpo.com.
I'm Richard Captain Henderson saying anchors away.
We'll talk with you soon. Until then,
Make it a great home-based biz day.